Welcome back to Chukitable Media. Yesterday, a new law has been passed in the House of Senate, or shall I say, an adjustment has been made to sexual crime law in Nigeria. Basically, it deals with defilement of minor. This law was discussed. The topic was well conceived by the legislators. And I want to seize this opportunity to call on you also to come here. Let us sit down and listen to what the expert says about this on AIT television this morning. It's an interesting topic, and it is better to know the law. Ignorance of the law, as they say, is not an excuse. So it's better to know what has changed to those people that used to pedophile young ones, people that used to defile young ones, people that used to engage in marrying young people, like as it happened enough. It is better to know what is going on right now when you listen to this discussion. But before that, I would like you to listen to the discussion as it happened in the plenary in Abuja yesterday. Both of them are here. I'll put them up. Thank you very much for watching.
Defilement of a minor should be different from that of rape. For a minor, this is a kid who is not capable of consenting or otherwise, and whose life can be destroyed almost permanently. Those involved in defilement should suffer greater punishment. I propose that it should be 20 years if you defile an underage. Because I've seen cases of boys and girls under 10 years old, 5 years old, defiled by adults.
You have proposed that for minors, defilement should carry 20 years. Any seconder?
Yes, sir.
Yes. A more severe one? There's a motion. Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I second the motion, ably moved by Senator Adam Oshomole.
That for minors.
For minors. That
the
penalty should be 20 years instead of 10 years.
20 years.
20 years.
Imprisonment.
I say second.
And no option of fine.
No option of fine.
Senator Aledo, you wanted to say something?
I wanted to propose a more stiffer punishment for defilement, life imprisonment. Because in other crimes, actually, it's life imprisonment. In fact, capital punishment. Particularly in India, Pakistan, and what have you, it's capital punishment. But here, we can reduce it to life imprisonment.
DSP, the motion was on 20 years, but the counter motion is on life imprisonment.
Mr. President, we don't have that in our rules. Once there's a motion, somebody seconds, then it will be put to vote. If he fails, then he can raise his own motion. We don't have this. It's alien to our rules.
Okay, but we bear in mind.
It's alien.
We bear in mind that he has a counter motion.
You can do that, but he knows it's an experienced legislator. He knows at this point you cannot change this. You should put to vote, defeat it, then you bring forward his own motion.
Okay, those in support that defilement of minors should carry 20 years imprisonment in the act say aye. Those against say nay. Okay, so that is defeated. Yes, you can now move. Your mic.
Thank you, Mr. President, sitting in the chair. My distinguished colleagues, I want to propose that the punishment for defilement is for minor is life imprisonment.
So in this case, it doesn't matter whether it is a woman or a man that does the defilement. The most important thing is that if a woman lures a minor to defile, life imprisonment. If a man lures a minor to defile, life imprisonment. Any seconder, Olamileko, because you feel very strongly about this. You are going to make sure that nothing like that happens in Ogun State.
Thank you, Mr. President, sitting as chair. Adeola Solomon Olamilekon. I rise to second the motion assembly moved by Senator Adamu Alero. I so second.
Yes. Distinguished colleagues, the motion has been moved and seconded that any defilement of a minor in Nigeria henceforth should carry life imprisonment. Those in support say aye. And those against say nay. They are not here. But is there any option of fine? No option of fine. So the motion is carried.
Today, we told you earlier that we will be
having, we'll talk about the amendment, proposed amendment to the criminal code that went on the floor of the Red Chamber yesterday. So we already have one of our guests join us, and a girl child right advocate, Queenette Uwakam. Queenette is also a talk show host and the founder of Queenette Uwakam Foundation.
Awukam.
Thank you for having me. Good morning.
You're welcome.
It feels good to be here. I'm in celebration mood.
You look good.
You're
celebrating, right?
I'm celebrating.
Okay, that means you really love what the Senate did yesterday.
Yes, I must commend the Nigerian Senate. That was a very good step towards protecting our girl child and our children from these perpetrators, from sexual abusers. So yes, I'm in celebration mood. It's a very good one for us.
Okay, some people have said even the penalty they are even proposing, even though it's stricter this time,
yes,
it's not even enough. You know, if you listen to our reviewers earlier today, they did say that, in fact, what would have happened, what would have been the best option is to talk about castration, castration. Because if a man knows that anything is going to happen to his genitals, he would never attempt that.
Of course.
This is a part of the body they protect so well.
And someone was asking, one of our viewers on YouTube was asking, so if we do that to a man, what then happens to a woman?
Yes, because the abuse is also both sides for both gender. And of course, the senator actually dealt with that as well yesterday.
Of course.
Moving the gender barrier.
Yes, it's been a very powerful one. And for our foundation, we run a campaign called the Don't Touch Me campaign for school kids, young teenagers, boys and girls. And what this does is create awareness, body autonomy, what is appropriate touch, what isn't appropriate touch. And the truth is, apart from the criminal code, section 218 that stated, okay, they'll be criminalized for any form of defilement, there haven't been any stringent law or stringent rule like this coming up. And that's why I'm saying I must commend the Nigerian Senate for it, because that shows that we are pushing forward to protect our children from perpetrators. As mentioned earlier, we're trying to create a safe space for children to be able to function. When you go out into the field, we work a lot with survivors of sexual abuse and sexual violence. These children are no longer normal. What you're dealing with is a broken child, and that's trauma. Okay, and of course, psychologists will say we are what our childhood put together for us. Do you understand that? So everybody is a product of their childhood. So by the time you start defiling a young girl or a young boy, you've already daunted, you've already broken their adulthood, you've broken their masculinity, you've broken their womanhood. So before they become full-blown teenagers or women or men, they are already very twisted. And that's where you get more of this violence. It's just an unending cycle if it's not addressed. And I love this new development.
Okay, you've been on this field, really. There's this argument, too, that once an abuser is always an abuser, really. So, I mean, also dealing with that...
psychology.
Yes.
Like I said earlier, people function with patterns. Someone does not just abuse once. That's where the problem is. Someone doesn't abuse once. So most of the time these people get caught, it's probably because
they've done it severally.
But they have done it before. And it started from somewhere.
How about a first-timer?
Are they really first-timers? Because it might not be as bad as, it might not get to, now, before you can call yourself a first-timer, you must have tried to touch a boy or a girl. You must have tried to have them touch you. What I'm saying is that before the great downpour, there are trickles, there are little behavioral patterns. And that's what we teach teachers. We get to educate teachers in schools and every other social environment how to identify all of these patterns, all of these behaviors. Now, someone who you say have abused once in the past because they were not caught, may have tried to touch or defile a child before, but because they weren't caught. So I do not believe in first-time abusers. I just believe that, oh, you were caught, so now we know, but this is not your first time.
So I think that what you said earlier about our childhood forming us at the end of the day. So I remember this story of a man, well, about 30 now, who mentioned that while he was growing up, it was even his auntie who would call him to say, touch me, do me like this, touch me. And the boy has grown to wanting to have anything with anybody. And in fact, one thing is that he loves older women now. He grew to loving older women, which just corroborates what you said. So you were celebrating. I'm not sure how you're celebrating if you're throwing a party. But let me be sure which of these proposals you are happy about, whether it's the life imprisonment, the one that was moved from 20. But let me see one of the proposals right there. In the new proposal, clause 2.1, it says that any person who detains a man or boy, a girl or a woman against his or her will in any premises in order to have unlawful carnal knowledge of him or her in a brothel or any place commits a felony and attracts a minimum jail term of 10 years, no conviction. Do you think that there should have been, what would you have suggested if you were in that room?
No, but I mean, what is rape? Coercion. That it's against your will. So as long as it is against your will, of course the person should be penalized. The person must be punished.
Yeah, the penalty here, proposal is 10 years, 10 years against the 3 years or so that he used to be. So I'm asking, if you were in that room, now you're celebrating the other part of it, of the life imprisonment. What would you have suggested? Would you buy the 10 years for rape, or would you say, oh, let's just kill you as we spot you?
well, the maximum penalty is what I would certainly go for. Now, what you need to understand, too, is my personal story. I was sexually abused, too. Yes. As a little girl, when I was 8, I was molested. Class teacher. When I was 15, I was raped. So, personally, I have a very strong conviction that these people should not be given a chance to roam the streets or abuse any other person, because I know how daunting it could be to your emotional and psychological well-being. Okay, some abusers, there are some rehabilitation centers for sexual abusers, so I heard, but how sure are we that if we send them back into the streets, they would not abuse another person? So yes, until you go through the process of rehabilitation, proper rehabilitation, because it's a very psychological, it has a lot to do with your emotional and psychological well-being. An abuser just doesn't wake up to be an abuser. There is a programming that needs to be fixed. There's a dysfunction with your mindset, and that has to be fixed. So before you are let, sometimes people just pretend that you put them in jail and we can't wait to get out, and they do it again. So it's not just locking these people up and releasing them after a couple of years.
Or granting them clemency.
Do you understand? How sure are we that they will not come? So I believe that apart from sending them to jail, they should go through rehabilitation. They will need it. They need it.
Because some people have said this may even be a mental issue, really, because sometimes you wonder how a full-grown man in his 50s, 60s, 40s would go down with a child of as little as 3 years, 2 years, 4 years.
If you Google pedophile or pedophilia, it's stated that, okay, it's a mental condition, right? But I also think that that is an excuse for these people. A child is a child. 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, you're not developed. A 5-year-old girl is not developed. She has nothing to attract you. Do you understand me? So it really goes...
So it can only be that you are mentally unstable.
Apart from mentally unstable, your heart is just evil.
Sometimes they blame the younger girls maybe for indecent dressing. So what does a child of 3 years, where does the indecent dressing come?
What of the boys that get sodomized? What's your excuse? I'm a strong believer in children should be playing with toys, not genitals. Educate them, protect them, build them, don't abuse them. And it's funny because most of all of this happened where a child is meant to be safe, at home, in school, in religious settings.
And talking about the toys, children playing with toys instead, and not genitals and all. I remember that my pastor, Pastor Philip Olubakin of the Supernatural Life Church, had recently said that his children do not watch anything, cartoon or movie that he has not watched. And that's because of the hidden messages that are now even in the toys, that in the all of those things. You know, there are hidden messages of fighting, sibling. I was reading a thing on Instagram, I think yesterday, about sibling rivals, the Tom and Jerry, you know, just sponsoring violence and anger, getting you battle ready and all of that.
They sponsor same-sex marriages in cartoons now. So children are already learning to be sexualized. Do you understand me? So, of course, parental control plays a very important role. Parental control. I tell people the home is the first, it's the responsibility of the home to first shape a child. Not school, not anywhere. Don't leave that responsibility to teachers. When you go to school, when you go out in the field and you discuss with these young kids, you find out that there's a dysfunction at home most of the time. It's either they're staying with guidance who are not responsible. I have a girl child because we handle certain cases. We have over, 800 to 1,000 cases. We've impacted over 20, 25 schools. I have a girl child who her parents sent her out to prostitute.
Really?
Yes.
Why?
Sent her out to get money. So she's like, Ma, if I don't do this, she's not up to 15.
No way.
She's not up to 15. She's 13. So if I don't...
Did you get to meet the parents? And
we are investigating because there is no excuse. We'll pick you up. We'll throw you in jail. There's no excuse. I'm not meeting you to dialogue with you, asking you why you would send your child to prostitute.
So what's the reason that the girl told you?
Well, you know, I'm the only girl and I need to take care of my parents, and that is because that is what she has been told at home.
Take care of parents.
Yes, they told her that, oh, to be a girl, you need to take care of us. You're a beautiful girl. So use what you have. You know that statement.
To start the family.
Yeah, to take care of the family, to get what you want. So these kids are already told that, look, I'm nothing more than just my body. I'm nothing more than just what I look like.
I think this is just driving us to another conversation entirely.
Yeah.
You know, when some people would argue that parents or couple do not even have children for companionship, they have children as retirement plan.
Exactly. We've had this argument before. Yes. They're like, do and grow up, or so you come back and take care of me. But that shouldn't be. Let these kids grow, let them explore, let them dream big, let them become. So parenting plays a very important role in this conversation. In some cases, parents cover up the case.
Due to stigma?
Yes. In some cases, they'll say, please, we don't want to take this to court. Don't worry. The perpetrators or the abuser or the rapist just has to give them something, and they've gone mute. A girl child's life or a boy's child's life has been affected badly. You've messed with his self-image. You've made them feel less, emasculate a boy, and all you need is just give them little stipends, and they bury the case.
Okay, let's look at the other aspect of this law which the Senate is amending now, the abortion aspect of it. You know, there was a lot of argument as to whether or not that should be allowed, or how many years, what sort of a penalty should be, given, particularly when it has to deal with a medical condition and all of that. So what's your take on how the debate went yesterday?
Well, that is a very dicey one. Because now you're caught between what is right and what is moral. Do you understand? At the end of the day, you'll be asking yourself, okay, if this happens to a person, why can't they just, But then if there's some certain conversations, you just have to pause and think about it first.
Okay, we'll come back to you on that because there's still so much to talk about. But we have joining us now Dorothy Njemanze, founder, Princess Dorothy Njemanze Foundation, another strong woman fighting for the rights of women.
Thank you.
All right, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, before you came in, we had already asked her about how she felt, the reaction about the debate yesterday and how the Senate ended up, talking about life imprisonment for anyone who defiles a minor. How did that come to you?
Well, it's important. We have the Child Rights Act, we have Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act, and these are the basic recommendations in these acts. And so it's important to harmonize it across board. That's the recommendation we have made. A civil society that have been a civil society member that has been part of ensuring the strength of these laws. I mean, nothing short of that, even at state levels, is the acceptable thing. And so that goes very well. But my concerns, particularly, would be around, what we're working on now. How did it come to? What public hearings were made? Because there's need for some harmonization of issues in this thing. My perception of the parts of the documents that I saw in circulation, which should not be already, considering the fact that I'm a survivor of sexual and gender-based violence, and I live supporting survivors of sexual and gender-based violence. So anything I speak to, I speak with authority as regards what happens with survivors of sexual and gender-based violence. And so, who was consulted on our behalf to tell us the things that are relevant to us? And
now, people thought that these were actually issues and papers and memorandum you have submitted in the course of your, advocacy that they are weaving into this law, isn't it?
Well, we have submitted a lot of, we don't miss opportunities to submit memoranda. I know the Feminist Manifesto, for instance, is a body of over 500 women's groups, and individuals. And I know that it is very well represented in areas of legislature, especially with things that have to do with the bodies of women and children. And so, who was consulted? How did they come up with these kind of things? Because what it sounded to me, what it sounded to me, having read the content of the different things, because everybody just hears, section this, section this, section this, the section that has to do with this, the eyes and the nays and everything. When I looked at the content of the material, for some of the things that were recommended there for adoption or for keeping and everything were bizarre.
Okay, could you specify the ones that you're not very comfortable with? Okay, because she was celebrating, earlier before you joined us.
For instance, the issues around what is it?
Rape, abortion, defilement.
Yes, the defilement. Yeah. The defilement of minors. Then there were also the ones that there was something around abduction, something about abduction of a girl child. My question is, what happens to abduction of a boy child? And then the next question is, what happens where the perpetrator of the violence against the child is the parent? Who you intend to, whose consent you rely on. And that's why I ask, who is advising these people? Who are you seeking advice of? When you're coming up with this kind of highly moralistic things, trying to look like you have high moral pedestal, or you're on high moral pedestal. You are not thinking about the numerous lives of children that are continually made pregnant on guises of religious or traditional blackmail or whatever it is. And their realities. The nation has failed all those children and women.
I think it's a good place to bring this in. Comment on YouTube. Raima Rabi, he says, if it becomes law, that's these proposals, let me remind you that it will contradict Islamic laws, Sharia in parentheses. My question is, what happened to the perpetrator who took such actions in line with his or her understanding of Sharia?
Well, I would also first of all ask that when these things are brought to light, what is there for the survivor? What is there for the victim? What does Nigeria have for children that are made pregnant? Nigeria recognizes children as people under 18 years old. That's why they cannot vote or be voted for. So countries like Saudi and the rest of them, they have a pegged age for who a minor is. We cannot be holier than the Pope, so to say. So why has Nigerian legislature shied away from defining the age of a child and sticking to it, just like other Islamic countries?
But we have in Nigeria 18 is up to 18.
Okay, so at what point is the constitution grown norm? In the grand scheme of things, where people keep on coming up with other ideas of, okay, well, we can excuse different things in this
for early marriage and all of that.
So the age of a child is 18 years old. So what are the issues around abduction of a child pegged at the people that are 16 years old? What happens to the 17-year-old child? What happens to the 17-year-old boy who is abducted? What happens to the boy child under 16 years old who is abducted? And with the state of insecurity today, abductions are a thing. So at what point are caregivers like me, who taking children at risk, going to be held for abduction while the streets are unsafe and our children keep getting abducted every day? I think that there's a lot of conflict in this, and I'm in the business of humanizing data. Human matter, it is everybody's business. We need to revisit a lot of these things in this stage and be sure that what we are putting out is not going to contribute to increasing the femicide statistics. That is what I see a lot of the things that have been put in place are for. And then you talk about the issues around miscarriage. Miscarriage and abortion, they are one and the same thing. If somebody takes whatever it is and it can terminate a pregnancy, let's remember that many people are opting for herbal medication now because they cannot go to hospital. Many people cannot afford to choose between food and education, amongst other things. So if that is the situation somebody is in, and chances that many people are trying out different things that they hope will keep them alive, when those things happen, it means that you're criminalizing them. What that bit sounds to me like is women defend pregnancies at all costs, even if it endangers your life. The access to healthcare is dwindling by the day. Access to the causative factors of miscarriages. Nobody looks forward to a miscarriage. Basic pH value of water has been known to trigger some miscarriages. Eating things like pineapple for some people has been known to trigger miscarriages. So if people take these things, how does that come in contact with the law? What I see here is a boys' club trying to legislate over, or come up with their agreeable, acceptable terms.
There was a lot of debate on this one, really, abortion, because of some of the issues you also raised, and that's why they have stepped it down, sent it to a committee that would look at it before it is reviewed. But let's come back to you. She has picked holes in some of the things we have celebrated earlier before she came, which is also quite germane. But implementation for many people is actually the key, not the absence of law in Nigeria. So how do you think these things would be, implemented to the last? Because sometimes the people who are supposed to even hold the perpetrators will be the ones protecting them at the end of the day.
Yes. So as I mentioned earlier, that sometimes parents are part of the sexual abuse that happens. And I think that one other major aspect we can tackle is the social-cultural norms. Our society encourages this. If we can start tackling the traditional chiefs, if we could start tackling clerics, if we could create a safe space where
would you
parents...
say tackling or negotiating
dialoguing, educating them, creating that awareness. That, look, this is wrong from, and if we need to change it, we need to change some social cultural norms. Because now one of the major problems is up north. This would not, it wouldn't shake them at all, because it's part of their culture. Child bride and marriage, it's what they practice. So how do we start changing this, especially up north? Do you understand? So I think, yes, we may have to go back to have more conversations.
I see that she's itching to respond.
Yes,
absolutely. So while we focus on up north and up north and up north, there's a crisis up north, but that does not, leave the south out of it.
Yeah.
With the northern part of the country, what I see a lot is that people try to ascribe some degree of honor to some crimes against children. under the guise of at least we'll marry them, and then after they marry, the process of divorce is even simpler.
Yeah.
It's even simpler, and then they leave these people unattended to. My question is, can we go back to the basics and actually humanize the crimes? You have a child put a child in harm's way for any reason, foot the bills, the medical bills of that person for life. Let us go back to the realistic, accountable indices that we can make available. Okay, health insurance, is it available or not? Is it available to these people who are at risk? It is not. There are so many ways the government can come in on grounds of responsibility. I hear you speak about implementation, but you don't want to be in a situation where you want to be negotiating implementation of something that already endangers the lives of other people. If a girls' club, for instance, were supposed to legislate and say, okay, vasectomy should be made mandatory because there's empirical scientific evidence that men are the primary causative factors of rape. They are the principal rapists. They refuse to have protective sex with their wives, and when pregnancies come out, because a lot of married people go to terminate pregnancies simply because their husbands would not use contraceptives from the beginning. They refuse to use condoms. And
they may not be available to take care of the child that is produced in the process.
Good. So at the end of the day, what happens to the woman? Things affect women differently from how they affect men. And this is why we keep talking about in the Senate and in those places, the numbers of women that are in those places need to increase, so that there are more people who have the lived reality of the issues at stake, and they can make meaningful contributions that will affect human lives better. All I see now with that thing, that, you know, the content of what came out is something that is going to enable femicides in a large scale, or contribute to the high statistics of femicide, and it actually needs to be reviewed properly. There are good prospects, but there are more dangers that we cannot afford to keep quiet about. The issue of the abduction and then focus on the girl child. We keep on talking about gender and equal opportunities bill. What is beneficial to the girl should be beneficial to the boy. What is beneficial to the boy should be beneficial to the girl. So if you're thinking
I think they talked about that much, really, in that debate. They removed the clause that, you know, seems to be swinging the thing onto the girl child alone, and try to balance, you know.
Good. So we need to sit back and look at those things, and then actually be able to advise on the implications of those as survivors of sexual and gender-based violence, so that while you think you're trying to do us good, please know from empirical evidence available, from scientific evidence, and from the evidence of the cultural realities or the security realities of Nigeria, the implications of what you are proposing to do on our behalf.
And I saw that Senator Natasha was making an effort to speak yesterday, and then she was ruled out of order. And what the case there was that she didn't speak when the case was still in debate. So the Senate President had ended the case, sent it to the Judiciary and Legal Matters Committee before she wanted to speak. And what the part that she could say that we heard was, oh, this is abortion, it affects women, let me speak. So I think there are about 4 at the Senate. Four women.
Senators, yeah.
I think she made efforts to speak, but maybe it was coming late, or she was not recognized at the time that it was open for deliberation.
I hear you. I mean, the rules of the Senate are the rules of the Senate, and they're applicable to everybody. Right. However, one thing is important: the quality of legislation that comes out of the Senate, whether you are male or you are female, you are guilty of, you know, the glory of it, or the shame of it, you know, comes to you. And so for that reason, this is an appeal to everybody that is in every legislative house to remember humanity, to remember to be human and humane, you know. So since these issues,
that's what they were trying to do yesterday with the amendments to the criminal code.
Well, I hear you, but what is the quality of what is being proffered? Like I just hear provide a solution to the high rise of rape and gross recklessness, sexual recklessness of men. Vasectomy. All unmarried men at 30 years old, vasectomy. Over 30 years old, vasectomy. Let us apply this vasectomy thing. And then at that point, then you now start hearing people talk about autonomy of the male's body. The reason, the pride they have in keeping their autonomy. What happened to our autonomy? I don't think there are certain issues that should be legislated on behalf of our bodies, you know, and anything like that that is legislated on behalf of my body that goes contrary to my safety and I'm talking about my physical safety, my mental safety, will be, strongly resisted.
All right. We'll come back. We'll come back to you, but we need to remind our viewers there are people who are on standby to join our Kakaki social segment, but we will bring it to you very soon. Just a few minutes to wrap up this conversation. So please don't change the dial. Okay. So coming back to you now, someone is asking: is there any assurance that these stiffer punishments, so to speak, that have been, of course, it's stiffer now from what it used to be, that it would, or rather, can curb sexual crimes?
Well, to an extent, it will. Because I feel most of the time these people have the guts or the audacity to carry out some of this action is because there are no stringent rules. Like I mentioned earlier, I think the stiffer the rule, the more, the easier it is to cop some of these cases. Because there is no prescribed law for this, for defilement or punishment for this. So with this, I think that we can cop sexual abuse. Okay, I think it would be stricter to be able to get these people, these perpetrators, if you tell them you're spending the rest of your life in jail, and actually stick to it. Because our security forces will play a very vital role
here. But the sitting governor will wait for the next 10 governors, and successively people come. No governor is willing to sign it.
Well, I think at this point we just have to be. We just have to be optimistic and start from somewhere. Okay. We can't keep reviewing and reviewing and reviewing without taking a major step. Do you understand? So it's good that this has come up, but also let's start from somewhere and keep it moving on our way. We can keep adjusting and making it better. But if we're going to sit down and keep deliberating, we're not moving anywhere. Arguments will come up. Every bill, every law that has been passed will definitely have opposing sides. They'll definitely have arguments. But for how long?
Okay, can I quickly speak to the access to justice reality? As a survivor of sexual and gender-based violence and one who lives supporting survivors of sexual and gender-based violence, you can't always come and be facing perpetrators and try to make me feel you are doing something great. What happens to the victims? What happens to the survivors? What happens to procuring protection orders? Who foots the cost of medical bills? The cost of access to justice keeps rising by the second. Justice in Nigeria, from empirical evidence, is available only to the rich, for the rich. So all the numerous people at risk that these laws are supposed to be addressing, how many of them can actually decide to go to a police station to report a crime as against using that money to eat food, as against using that money to start a business? How many of them will just not rather not say, let us leave it to God? So when you're talking about implementation, like I said, from the beginning, let's speak to the quality of what is going to need to be implemented, and let that quality reflect the gaps that exist. Access
so
to
what do you
protection
propose
orders
should be done for the victims, really, or the survivors?
Access to protection orders, very important. Realistic provision for the well-being and welfare of victims. Where do they stay? The shelters that could be supporting them, are they funded? Who pays the medical bills of survivors? Is sexual and gender-based violence seen as a medical emergency so that you go into a general hospital if this happens and you're treated for free? Is there health insurance? Do health insurance policies take into cognizance the realities of the women?
Those are your call to action, and they're rich. We listened to you earlier, and we need to start running with what we have. Implementation is key, so we'll adjust as we move and realign. So we'd like to thank you both for joining us this morning on Kakaki, the African Voice.
Queenette, I will come.
Thank you for coming. And thank you so much, Lady Ujamanse.
All right, have a great day, ladies.
Thank you for watching. If you're new to this channel, consider subscribing so you won't miss out any of our latest videos.